Welcome back to My Gathering Basket. My name is Danelle. Thank you for joining me on what is becoming a monthly almanac instead of a bi-weekly podcast. Should we start with that? So here's kind of my latest excuse, right? I seem like I'm always coming up with excuses. And I don't mean that. This is a fun thing for me to do, and I hope it's a fun podcast for you to watch. So I'm trying not to put too many demands on myself. I just started a new job, and that's been kind of keeping me a little occupied, despite or in addition to holidays, which Happy New Year. I hope it's gotten off to a wonderful start for you, and I hope Christmas was wonderful. My goodness, I intended to talk to you much earlier than this, so I could at least say Merry Christmas, but this is just the way it's gone. So for those of you that know me in real life, you've kind of been watching this adventure from a distance and probably laughing. For those of you that don't know, I've told you that I work at a quilt shop, and I do, and I still do. But I'm one of those nuts that can't stay with just one job at a time, it seems like. Most of my life I've had two or three, one main job and then a couple other things kind of on the side. So I work at a quilt shop, but the job that actually paid the bills is I worked full-time, or mostly full-time, as a nurse. And I decided to kind of step back from that after about 10 years, and I am going back to what was our family business. We owned a greenhouse and florist for nearly 20 years here in our little town, and when my parents decided to retire, they were interested but didn't put any pressure on me to kind of inherit the business, to take it over. And I just decided, it took three of us. It's a massive business. We do a retail greenhouse and a full gift shop and a full service flower shop. So it took three of us to run it well. And I was very proud of what our family had done for the last 20 years. And I didn't want to try to do it all by myself. So I stepped away from that. We sold the business, and the current owner has been after me for quite some time that if I wanted a job change, I was welcome to come back. So I finally took her up on the offer. So I am back to a 5-day, 6-day-a-week job, but I'm hoping that will give me mornings and evenings, no more 12, 13, 14-hour shifts, so that I have some time in the evenings to do the gardening that I like, and maybe be able to do some bees again, and definitely to have some more time to do my quilting business. So there you go. And at the same time, I only have enough internet capability to upload a podcast at our public library. One of the downsides of living in a rural area, high speed is not exactly adequate in our Wi-Fi that we can get residentially. So I have to go to our public library, and it's been a little bit hard to figure out a time that I can get there, because small town library, wonderful little place, but they're not open after 5. So trying to figure out the logistics there. So please be patient. I'm figuring out a new schedule. I'm really excited about it. It's a big change. So I'm trying to my body's trying to relearn a different schedule, and my crafting is learning a different schedule. So I think it's all good things, and I hope to be with you a little bit more consistently now that my schedule's a little bit more consistent, but I'm gonna have to be creative in how I do that. So what have I been doing? Well, New Year, I don't know if you've made any crafting resolutions. I know I've been watching some of you on Instagram, and many people are making their Make 9 lists or their crafty goals or all sorts of creative names for what you intend to do this year. I wasn't going to do that. And then Amy of Noble Character Crafts came up with a Make 9 along cal that she is running on Instagram. So I have my list going. I haven't made my post. I plan on doing that because I didn't want to put a bunch of, I don't know what this year is going to bring. New schedule, new career, new, I didn't want to pin myself down with the quilting business. I don't know how much knitting time I will have. That has gotten a little busier, which I'm very grateful for. And I have a lot of plans on the horizon. Hopefully will work out. So I didn't want to peg myself into a lot of things that I wasn't sure I was even going to be able to start. But the more I got to thinking about it, and we have a really fun little gathering on New Year's Day at my friend Tammy's house called Knit Year's Day. And the more we were talking, and I was thinking and seeing what the other ladies were working on, and I realized I already have at least 9 things that I've pretty much committed for one reason or another, whether it's a test knit or things I've wanted to put in the fair or gifts. I already have about 9 things, and they're not all big things for once. So I'm kind of thinking I may go ahead. In fact, when I was making up the list, this is so weird. I think over half of it were hats. And I'm not a huge hat knitter, but for some reason here lately, I've been wearing my hats, which helps. And so I want all the hats. So hats aren't huge. I should be able to get those done. And I've picked out several that have different skills, different yarns I want to try. One is a beret I've never worn a beret. So I'm kind of excited to try some new things. So we'll see. But when I get that list kind of solidified and get my post up, I'll probably talk about that a little bit more on the next podcast, and definitely as I make things. And I'm not going to put a huge amount of pressure on myself to get that all done. But that's going to be probably, for the most part, what I work on this year. So one thing that I have tried to commit to, I am hoping I can actually accomplish, is spin 15 a day. I know the benefits of spinning consistently, even for small amounts of time. 1, in your skill building, and 2, in the amount that you can get done. It's incredible what you can get done in 15 minutes. So the first thing that I have started is on my drop spindle. So that's what I have done in, well, I did a little bit more than 15 minutes, but in about 15 minutes a day, what I've started doing is popping on a short podcast episode that might be 15, 18, 20 minutes and just spinning for that episode. And when it's done, I put things away. So I have gotten a little bit, and this is very fine fiber, so I'm not making fast progress, which goes against my amazing how much you can get done in 15 minutes. But this is more than I had spun, and this little bit of wool has been sitting next to my chair for months. It's actually less than 2 ounces, or less than, I think the whole thing, which was 1, 2, 3, 6 colors. And this is crinkling, I'm sorry. But this is a bundle, and you've seen this before by Greenwood Fiberworks. This is 50% yak, 50% silk. And altogether it was 5 ounces. So I'm basically doing an ounce at a time, which I should be able to do just lickety split, right? And I did do one of these colors. There was a blue one that I did last year and entered in the fair. So I have 1 color done. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 5 colors yet to do. So I am hoping, so this is less than an ounce, and it's all of this. So, and I've been spinning probably about this much in 15 minutes. So there is a lot of entertainment just in this 1 color. But if I can plug away and at least get a little bit done every day, and then there's going to be some other projects that should go much faster. I have 2 projects that should have, they call for DK weight. So thicker yarns are a little harder for me to spin, actually. This is my comfort zone. It's slow, but this is what my fingers want to draft. So I'm hoping that when I get into like this BFL, And these are the BFL is what I'm hoping, and then I have some Romney that I want to make a little bit thicker and try to get either a 2 or a 3 ply out of those and get a DK weight. So, and then I haven't completely forgotten about my Shave 'em to Save 'em. I am plugging away at that Jacob still. It's still on my e-spinner, and I have a dozen other projects that I want to put on that e-spinner, but I'm making myself finish that Jacob. And it's beautiful wool. I like Jacob, but it has so much vegetable matter in it that it just hasn't been a fun spin. But I've got to get that done. I am really hoping to, in January, so today is January 3rd, I believe. I'm really hoping to have at least this and the Jacob spun this month. I don't know if that'll happen, but that's my goal. So that's my spinning. And hopefully this year I'll have more. I mean, I had the last quarter of 2019, I had nothing to show for myself on spinning. So there's my goals for that. And then, and this is where the Spin 15 a day came in. I got one of these little calendars in the mail. It's just a free, I think this is a disabled veterans flyer that I got. And normally I wouldn't keep a calendar like this, but what I did, I looked at it and I thought, it's one sheet, it has a hole, I can hang it up in my spinning corner, and then as I spin, I'm marking off the days. So this is a good visual way, and I am a list motivated person. If there's something I can cross off, it will get done. So I'm hoping that this will be kind of like a list, and I can keep myself to the Spin 15 a day. It was almost midnight last night when I got my 15 minutes in, and I was starting to go to bed, and I thought, no, I've got to be able to mark off my calendar. So it's goofy, but it works. So if something like that would motivate you as well, give it a try. And that can be 15 minutes spinning, it can be 15 minutes sewing, crocheting, knitting, whatever you want, just having that 15 minutes a day. So I have 2 15-minute a day things that I am trying to do for 2020. The Spin 15 a day, and then I'm also part of a group called the Bible Recap that does a read through the Bible in a year. I did it almost through last year. I started about 3 weeks into the year, I think. So I got almost all the way through with them last year. I just picked up where they were and went from there. But it takes about 15 to 20 minutes a day as well. So again, now that I have a little bit more regular work schedule, I'm hoping that I can get a morning routine and I can do my Bible recap reading in the morning, and then I may do the spinning at night because I do find that very relaxing. So I can have my morning tea, my time to read my Bible, and we'll see if the spinning will go morning or evening, or maybe both. That would be really nice. I would love to do like the spindle in the evening and do something on the wheel in the morning. Yeah, we'll see how the year works out. So that is my spinning, and those are my goals for this year. My first knitting project, and this will be on my Make 9, is the Kate Davies sheep heat hat. And I got the pattern when I was in Shetland, and I really wanted to get the fiber. This calls for 9 different colors. It's the 9 different colors that Jameson of Shetland does in their naturals. So they're all natural colors. Excuse me. So I wanted to buy the yarn, but it's a lot of yarn for a hat. So my friend Tammy, and this may end up being the Tammy episode, but she bought this kit several years ago. Let's go with that. And she just completed it over Christmas. And she had told me that when she finished, she would have a lot of extra yarn and she would give me her scraps. Now, she had also given enough for a kit to another friend of ours, Ellie. And Ellie finished her hat. Tammy now has her hat done. So both ladies sent me their extras, and it was so cute because they sent them in these little bags with, they were all labeled with the color, and Tammy gave me her ball bands. So I have 18, I have 18 little bags like that. And probably when I'm done, I'm gonna have enough for pieces of another hat as well. So yes, thank you, Ellie. Thank you, Tammy, so much for giving me your pieces and letting me try this amazing hat. So New Year's Day at Knit Year's Day party, I got my cast on done, and I am on row 4 and color 4. So this is going to involve quite a few ends. I am working this part on a 2.75 millimeter. I am following the pattern. I am notoriously bad at not swatching for hats. In fact, the group of us were talking about our success rate with hats fitting, and it would be so much better if we swatched, but somehow in my head, swatching for a hat, by the time I get a 4 to 6 inch swatch made, I could have half my hat done. So this may be hopefully it's not a frog type of pattern. I'm hoping, you know, this is the ribbing part, and it is stretchy, and I will be going up to a 3 millimeter when I get to the body of the hat and the color work. So right now it looks pretty small, but I know when I did my other color work hats this fall, I kind of had the same panic, and it turned out to be just fine. So we'll see. But that is at least cast on. I have wanted to do this for years and been looking forward to it. So fingers crossed this one goes well. And then I have a little bit of progress to show you. I finally have something I can show you on the sweater I've been making. Here we go. So this has been a longer term project than I anticipated, but I have all of the sewing done with the exception of the side seams. So those I have yet to sew up, but that won't take me very long. And oh my goodness, I never thought about these. These are from my quilting supplies. They're the little clips. There's a bunch of brands of them, but they're just the little clips that we use for putting the binding on, or at least that's how I use them. And I was putting together these seams for the sleeves and started to use little, I use like the removable stitch markers is what I've used in the past, and that works just fine. But and times I've kind of basted the whole piece, like just with a piece of contrast yarn to hold it in place and stitched it up. But then I got to thinking, I had just finished binding a quilt, and so I had these out, and I thought, well, shoot, why not? And it has worked great. So a friend gave these to me, one of my quilting friends, and they work amazingly well on quilting for binding like that. But it works really well for knitting too. So I love it when I can cross-train my crafting supplies. So I have that to do. That won't take me very long. The body is all knit up. The sleeves are in. They fit. I was so excited. And then the pattern for this, I am doing a kind of like a mock turtleneck. It's a high neck, and it'll have a zipper right here. So I have my stitches all picked up. What I did, one mod I made from the pattern, and this is a cobbled together pattern, kind of, I call it Design Your Own Adventure, from the Melissa Leapman 6,000 Pullover Possibilities, and I'll link that book below. So I just kind of put together, this is the front I want, this is the sleeve style I want, you know, all of that. And one thing that I did, instead of binding off at the end of each piece, because it is sewn together, I just left those on waste yarn. And so when I went to pick up the neckline, I just picked up all those live stitches. So that worked so far. And then you were supposed to, and this is kind of a little unwieldy to show you, sorry, but because I had this slit where the zipper will go, and then there's a little bit of a neck decrease here, because, and then right to the sleeve, because it is a raglan style. So what you were supposed to do is use 2 balls of yarn and work on each side of this slit. So I was having some yarn management, color management issues. This is beautiful yarn. It is all the same dye lot, but it is hand dyed. This is from Miss Babs. And I tried to alternate, and I didn't like the way it looked. So I did the back all in one ball, and it, like when I started alternating, the colors started pooling worse. So I did the back in one ball, the front in one ball, and then I did both sleeves out of one ball. I had 3 skeins of yarn. So the sleeves are very different from the front. And hopefully I'll have this to wear soon and you can see, but they are very much lighter. They don't have near the amount of blue, but I was able to get both of these balanced. So, and the lighting is not showing up the color very well, but, and I'm thinking, I think it is actually going to fit a whole lot better than it looks like too. So, anyway, you were supposed to use 2 balls of yarn, but I didn't want to try to make 2 balls out of the 1 ball that I was using. I was just kind of feeling lazy. So I got to looking at it and I thought, well, why can't I steek that? So I worked this part as a steek here and did a crocheted steek, which I think looks really, I don't think I'm going to actually have to do any edging. I think this steek stitch will work for my edging, so I shouldn't, once I get the zipper in there, I shouldn't have to go back and do any kind of placket there. And then I cut my knitting. So I did a pretty tight crocheted edging for the steek because this is superwash. So, and my preference would be non-superwash when I'm doing a steek. So I actually left several stitches here. I think I did a 4-stitch steek. So if you haven't done steeks before, basically what I did is, this is a stockinette pattern, and I did a, so on the right side, I knit across, and then I did 4 purl stitches, and then stitched across, and then picked up a crocheted through the, I'm not going to explain this well. You can Google steeking if you have not done this and get much better directions than what I can tell. But basically you kind of work, so in a knit stitch, you have your V, and then you have kind of a loop behind it. And so basically I crocheted those loops together pretty tightly to keep those all bound together so that it wouldn't unravel when I cut my knitting. So I cut the zipper area. I have to put the zipper in as soon as I get the neck done, and basically it's about 3.5 inches of straight ribbing up, and then I will be ready to cast off, put in the zipper, sew up the sides, and try it on. So I'm nearly there. I had so hoped to have this done by the end of the year, and it just didn't happen. So I'm very, very close, and that will be done before long. So that's the sweater, and then I have another sweater that is ready to cast on, and I will show that to you as soon as I get it cast on. But I haven't forgotten about the sweaters. It's just been slow. So that's what those are my knitting updates. And then of course, oh no, it's not. I finished something, actually finished something that I started like in May. So I got my, this is, let me think, Cascade Heritage Prints. Yes. And I don't remember the colorway name, but it was kind of that faux aisle self-striping pattern. And I had one done lickety split, and then took me forever to get the other one done. So finally sat down and just finished it, and got them washed and blocked. I have not even tried them on yet. Well, no, I did try it on before I blocked it, so I know, but I haven't worn them. So, and this is the Vanilla is the New Black heel, kind of that ribbed heel that I really like. So I thought those turned out cute, and I'm looking forward to wearing these. I think they'll be fun for spring and summer. I am one of those that wears my wool socks year round. I am cold natured. I don't get hot with my wool socks, so I get a lot of use out of them. So I'm glad to have another pair in my drawer. And then of course I have to give you the dishcloth update. I was able to get 50 done by well, actually I cast off the 50th one New Year's Day, but I had 50 done. 6 of those were donated by friends of mine that I showed you last time, and I had 13 up in my cabinet. So I believe, if I did my math right, it was around 31 dishcloths that I got done last year for my Operation Christmas Child project. So I have 200, and this was what I got done since I talked to you last. So I had a decent little pile, both knit and crocheted. But I will admit, when I counted them up at the end of the year and I had 50, that's a long way from 200. I mean, it's getting there, but it's still, I started adding up how many I was going to have to do like on a weekly or monthly basis to get to 200 by October. And I'd like to get it to them earlier than that so that they know they have that done and don't have to buy them. And this is my church's Operation Christmas Child, which is putting together, I've talked about this before, so, but for anybody new, if you're not familiar with it, basically it's putting together a gift in a shoebox size box container and just filling it up with little things, some things that are needed, so like the washcloths and toothbrushes and soap and that kind of thing, hygiene items, but also little toys and crayons and stickers, and depending on the age of the child. And then those are sent to kids around the world. So really cool ministry. Our church has done it forever. I have done something similar since I was a little kid, like preschool. I remember going and picking out gifts to put in. At that point, it was a stocking that a group was doing. So really fun, and it's been a lot of fun to work on this through the year. So I will admit I was getting a little panicky, like, am I going to be able to knit anything else the rest of the year? So I go to Knit Yours Day. And there's 5 of us, and one of them, Claudia, had given me several dishcloths before, and I showed up, and Miss Tammy says, oh, I've got something for you. And she hands me a bunch of extra little pieces, half skeins, and some full skeins of cotton yarn, and she said, here's some for you to make, and then here's the ones that I've made for you. And she hands me this whole stack of knitted washcloths. There are 25 in here. I know how many hours that takes to make 25, but that brings my total to 75, and man, that seems 125 in the next 9-ish months actually seems somewhat doable. Just having that big stack and getting, like, because I was trying to kind of break it into 25s, and so being able to cross that off my little gauge of how many I had to do was a huge, huge help. Not just physically, like, here's the dishcloths done, but just kind of that emotional, oh my word, I might actually make this. I think it's going to work now. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I am so happy to put this in my stack, and now I have got to get a tub going that I can get all of these gathered together. What I'm hoping to do is put them in sets. We try to put 2 in each box, so a total of 100 boxes, and I think it'd be really cool to roll these all up with a little piece of ribbon or something, and maybe I was thinking about trying to make a little label, like a little note that I could attach to these. So I am looking forward to doing that. I also got a whole box, I didn't bring it over here, but a whole box of Hobby Lobby I Love This Cotton in like all the wild colors. Because I thought this is for kids, right? So let's have fun. Let's get all the colors that I wouldn't necessarily buy for myself. So I got the bright pastels, the crayon colors, just all sorts of colors. So I think I got 25, if I remember right, and I can make about 3 per skein if I'm knitting. I'll probably still do some crocheted. So I pulled out the first one, and what I'm trying to do is just pull out one skein and go through the whole thing, and then pull out another skein and go through the whole thing. So I have got enough to keep me busy, and I have sold enough dishcloths at the little vintage shop near us that I was actually able to buy all of my yarn with the proceeds that I was able to like I think I talked about last time. I was able to sell some dishcloths, some crocheted dishcloths, and use that money that I earned to buy the dishcloth cotton. So, rambling story again. I promise I will not talk about dishcloths all the time on every podcast, but that is what I'm working on. I also got a couple rugs made. I am trying to get, oh, sorry, shook the camera. I made up some new labels. So I'm really happy with these because it keeps my rug neat, and yet if a customer wants to pull this off and unroll the rug, they can. And I'm not making a bunch of flapping labels, but I have kind of the size and the price and the little safety warning about slipping, and then care tips on the back. So I've got that all done, and I have a bunch more dishcloths that are ready to go out this afternoon and take to her at the Vintage Chaos. So that has kept me more than busy. And then I've also done client quilts. I've had several that I was able to get done in time for Christmas for people, which was very exciting. This is one I am putting the binding on for a customer this afternoon. But this is what I'm doing, is putting that design on, quilting that quilt sandwich together with a cute design. This, I'd like to know the story. When she picks it up, I'm going to ask her. It's a very scrappy quilt. And it's definitely some clothing in there. There's some fabric that's so old it was actually starting to tear, and I had to do a little bit of repair work. And then there's some that's obviously like shirts. So I'm curious to know if it's a memory quilt. She didn't tell me. She just said it was something that she put together. So I will be putting the binding around the edge for her. I do offer binding services as well. So I'm putting it on, making her binding, putting it on, and then she's going to sew it down on the back by hand. She said she enjoys that part, but not putting the binding on. So, and then I have several other quilts that I am hoping to get quilted this afternoon. Some of them are charity quilts that my aunt does, and then I have a couple quilts that I'm just playing with new styles. The quilting long arm machine that I use is from the company APQS, and they just had a massive update to their digital programming, the robotics on the machine. So I'm just barely starting to learn all the new things that they have to offer on that program. But I'm having a lot of fun working with that, and they have a lot of hundreds of new designs that came with the upgrade. So I am playing with these charity quilts and trying to kind of sample, swatch the new designs on those. So that will probably be my afternoon. And let's see, I did get some new books, but this is already getting long, so I will do the book review next time, I hope. And let's see, homesteading. Like, there's something about crossing over, getting through Christmas and New Year, and all of a sudden, like, I have a stack of, they're actually at my mom's house. She's had more time to look, but I have a stack of seed catalogs probably this tall. So we are starting to look through seed catalogs. I don't think there's a lot that we need this year, but there's always new things to try. So I have seed catalogs to look through. The weather, I have never had a batch of chickens like this, but they quit. They went through their molt this fall, and they molted harder than any batch of chickens I've ever had. Like, we had some nearly naked birds in our backyard. They looked funny, but they usually, when they're molting, which basically molting, they molt at least once a year, and they lose all their feathers and grow new ones. And there's a whole, like, they look so much prettier, but even warmth, those new feathers stay so much tighter and protect the chicken more. So when they molt in the fall, it just kind of gets them ready for winter. And they usually stop laying because it takes a lot of energy to grow all new feathers. So they usually stop laying eggs for a while. And then egg production is timed by the light, the amount of daylight. And some people put lights in their coop to kind of simulate daylight so that they get more eggs throughout the winter. I've never done that. I don't have an easy way to get a light. I have done that in the past, but my current setup, it's just not very easy to do. So I just let them take their break, but usually I can still have enough eggs I have 10 chickens right now, and one of them is 5.5 years old or something like that. I'm pretty sure she's not laying, but I've never had a group of chickens completely stop. Like, we haven't had an egg in over 2 months. So the days are just starting to inch a little bit longer, and I'm hoping that we will start getting eggs again. I know I have several friends that said theirs for some reason just completely stopped this year too, and they are just starting to get eggs again. So I'm hoping that maybe I will start getting fresh eggs again. So that will be almost as exciting as the very first eggs. So I'm looking forward to that. I also had an update on the loofah sponges. So you may remember, or not, and that's fine, but you may remember I grew loofah sponges, and we had a really early frost this year, and these do not tolerate any frost. So I had to pull them early. And this is kind of what they looked like. They were real dark green, and they started to dry. I had a half dozen that were a good size, kind of like this, and they are just feather light because inside is a sponge. So I had pulled 30 some off the vines. Most of those were not big enough. They actually just rotted. But I was down to about 6 or 8, and a couple of those were getting moldy. So I brought those in from our greenhouse and actually set them right next to the heat registers in the house, and they are starting to turn brown. So they get really hard and crinkled up and turn this brown color when they're completely mature, and then you get to peel them. So I started peeling this one so I could show you, but there's the loofah sponge. Like, we actually had, I think I will have 3 maybe that are a good usable sponge. But first I have to pick all of this little, and it's literally just like that. You just kind of sit there and peel. So I have a lot of peeling work. And then, can you hear the seeds in there? So then you wash it and get all of the, just the growing, stuff that's on there, and wash out the seeds. The seeds are, I was hoping I could, not gonna be up, nope, maybe. Okay, so inside, dust. Okay, so inside are all these black seeds. And there's actually a hole. If you haven't seen a loofah sponge, there's usually 3 or 4 holes. There we go. Okay, so, and each of those little holes is full of seeds. So, there's one. Oop, dropped it. But I have all those seeds to get out too. So, I have my work cut out for me before I have a loofah sponge. But I'm kind of excited that I was able to get a few at least. I think that's pretty cool. So just enough success that I've got to try it again next year. And maybe we'll have a little bit. We had a late spring, so we couldn't get gardens in early as usual. And then we had a very early fall. So our growing season this year was incredibly short, and we had we had flooding, not like some places, but we did have flooding. So not a great garden year. Maybe next year, the gardener's mantra, next year will be better. And hopefully I'll have a long enough growing season that I can get a few more of the gourds big enough to be usable. But at least I have a few. So very excited about that. Let's see. I think that's about what I had in mind to show you, which was a whole lot more than I thought I had. That seems to always be the case when I start gathering things up that I want to chat about. And then my stories get long, and this gets to be another 45-minute podcast. So thank you for hanging with me. Oh, if anybody wonders, this is a very old shawlette. This is Brickless by Martina Bem. I cannot tell you the name of the yarn. It was something I picked up on clearance at a little yarn shop 6 or 7 years ago. I don't remember the name of the yarn, but it's just kind of it's a bright, good pick-me-up on a winter day. So that's what I'm wearing, and I have been really wearing my hand knits this winter. The Cara hat that I made and told you about it was my first Save 'em to Shave 'em, Shave 'em to Save them, always get that wrong, project that I finished out of the Dorset horn. It's out in my chore coat. I have been wearing that daily. It is so nice and squishy and warm. I highly recommend, if you haven't tried Dorset horn, give it a try. Very nice spin, very nice yarn. So that's about what I have for now. I am not going to make any guarantees or promises, or I'm not sure exactly how quick I will get another recording app. I am hoping to get this to the library this afternoon. This is Saturday, and they're open for a couple more hours. So I am hoping to do a really fast edit on this and get it up this afternoon. And I'm hoping I can get on a little bit more regular schedule as I figure out my schedule. So thank you so much for hanging with me. I hope you are off to a great start in 2020. I will hopefully visit with you soon. Until I see you again, may your gathering basket overflow with blessings. Bye, friends.